Alright, what is up YouTube? Today I'm riding the 2023 Kawasaki KLX 300SM. But this is Kawasaki's Supermoto bike. Now the guts are pretty much a dirt bike here with street tires, and I'm sure it has street gearing compared to a full-on regular dirt bike. I used to own a 2001 Suzuki DRZ 400, but that was converted into a Supermoto. We'll try out this Kawasaki Supermoto bike here. So far, pretty easy to take off from a stop, very easy to shift. There's no drama to the shifting. It just goes in to gear very easily. It's not clunky at all. It's overall pretty smooth actually, and very easy to balance at a low speed here. Try and keep up with the group here. It's got a decent amount of power. It's definitely not gonna blow you away or really surprise you for how much power it has. I'd say it's respectable for the bike. The bike is very light, and so it doesn't need a ton of power to really have fun on. Brakes are very grabby, so you gotta be gentle with the brakes. They're very tight on here. So far it kind of feels like a dirt bike, but just a lot smoother. First gear is pretty short. Second gear is okay. It's got some power. But like I'm giving it the full beans here, and it's pulling a little bit, but it's not fast, that's for sure. I'd say this is more like a beginner Supermoto. If you want to get into the Supermoto side of things, this would be a good bike to kind of experience how a Supermoto rides. Very easy to downshift and rev match. The suspension is very soft, so you can see the suspension really takes a beating. The suspension is pretty soft, so you can really move it around quite a bit, front and back, but you don't really feel the suspension being too soft while you're out riding. It's overall a comfortable ride, and even when you go around a corner here, it doesn't feel like it's too soft for good handling. Right now I am pretty much flat foot on both sides, barely. I'm 5'11". Take that into consideration in terms of seat height. It does feel a little bit taller than the Ninja 400 and Ninja 650 in comparison there. But very easy to take off. It sounds pretty good in the higher RPMs. It would definitely benefit from an exhaust system on here. I think it feels a little bit less powerful than my DRZ 400 that I used to own. It's still pretty fun though. I mean, these bikes aren't meant to go fast. They're meant to rip around the city streets here. And that's probably most of what you're going to be doing with it. Maybe even slower country roads. The seating position is pretty comfortable here. I'm sitting straight up on here. My arms have room to relax here. I don't feel like I'm being pulled forward. Now there's quite a bit of wind blast. This being technically a naked bike, there's going to be some wind blast there. Lack of a windshield. But yeah, this is just a fun little city bike, and it's nice that Kawasaki makes this from the factory, so you don't have to spend a ton of money converting trashing a dirt bike. The seat is very comfortable right now. It's a pretty soft seat, and it's got more of a wider girth to it. It's got a wider girth to it than a typical dirt bike seat. My old Suzuki DRZ 400 had straight up dirt bike seat on it, and it wasn't very comfortable for longer than 20-30 minutes. This one I think would be comfortable up to an hour, maybe an hour and a half if you've got an iron butt. These aren't really made for comfort, they're made just for ripping around on the street. So far it's very easy to ride. It's pretty fun. The power, like I said, it's not going to blow you away, and it probably won't impress you that much, but it does have a good amount of power. You do have to be in the correct RPM range for the power though. A Supermoto is not always the greatest bike to have as a single bike. Supermoto bikes are usually better as second bikes and not necessarily only bikes. They're not very practical. They have this very small gas tank, and I'm back on my old Suzuki DRZ. I ran into the problem where I had to fill up every 2 days with gas. It was pretty annoying there. And going around a corner here, very easy to lean over. It feels very light when you're going around a corner, so it's very confidence inspiring to just, you know, lean it over. So far I like it. Would I go for this bike at my current stage of life? Probably not. It would be fun as a second bike if you have the money for it. If this bike is $5,000 to $6,000, then this as a second bike is pretty expensive. So maybe more of a race bike. You take it to the track, really rip it on the track, appreciate the handling and the low amount of power. I mean, you can keep up in traffic pretty easily, but keeping up with a bigger bike like the Versas or the Z900s or even the Ninja 650s is going to be very difficult on this bike. I think this would be a great beginner bike though, along with the Ninja 400, because this bike is super light. If you drop it, you can just replace the plastics. You're not worried about trashing a really nice bike. And it's really light. It'll teach you how to ride. It's got just enough power to get you out of a bad situation if you need it. As you can see on the digital display here, there's not much to it. Very simple, no coloring, odometer, speedometer, and the RPM gauge there, and a clock. So a fairly simple bike, nothing fancy. I do like the shifting on this bike. It just feels, oh man, going over some bumps here. It just feels nice and direct without being clunky. It just goes into gear perfectly every time. And I'll say again, the brakes are pretty touchy, so that is something to note. And this is a fairly fresh bike. It's got 800 miles on it. You barely need any throttle to get going. Just let out the clutch very slowly, and the bike almost just picks up on its own. Now we're getting on the freeway. We're going to see how it does on the freeway. Typically these bikes aren't freeway or highway bikes, but we're going to take it anyway. See how it goes. The foot pegs are right below my knees here, so your legs are a little bit crunched up, as you can see, but you're not going to be doing long road tours on this bike, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Alright, so I was almost pinned there. I think I was pretty much pinned. And it did pretty well. It is fun to just flick around though, I'm not gonna lie. It just handles so well. So I think we're in 5th here. We'll go up to 6th. And we're in 6th gear, doing about 6,000, 6,500 RPMs here. The bike is vibrating quite a bit. So there's lots of vibrations in the handles, in the seat, in the foot pegs. It's getting pretty buzzy. It's got some power. I mean, it'll keep up on the freeways with regular traffic here. But yeah, it's a little bit buzzy on the freeways, not gonna lie. But if you need to get on a freeway and cruise, it's available. It's like you're not gonna be doing a ton of freeway, highway riding on this bike, but if you need to, you still can. There's lots of wind blasts though. I'm feeling a lot of wind on my chest, and I can feel I'm getting blown around a little bit. It doesn't feel as stable as the bigger bikes on the freeway here, but I've definitely ridden worse on the freeway, so this is pretty good. I love downshifting and rev matching on this bike. It's so easy and so forgiving because it's a lower speed bike. It's not going to satisfy your power craving if you're looking for a power craving like that, but it is going to teach you how to ride Supermoto and give you a fun little Supermoto bike that you can kind of rip around. It is very forgiving, so it's not going to punish you when you make a mistake. But yeah, it feels so good leaning it over. And just rolling through the gears is very satisfying. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's even more satisfying than some of the bigger bikes. It is nice driving a smaller bike once in a while. You just get to rip it harder than you would a big bike, just because the big bikes are too fast, too powerful to rip like you want to. And so this bike is just takes care of that itch a little bit. I have not ridden one of the modern Suzuki DRZ 400 bikes, so I don't know how those compare at the moment. But this is a fun bike. I'd have to try the 400 and see what that's like. If I was getting a Supermoto, personally, I would want a little bit more power than this. And that's just me with my motorcycle history and experience. But overall, good package, good little Supermoto, fun to ride around.